Okay, let's unpack this. If you've spent any time working with large language models, or even just, asking them a really complex question, you know the core issue.
Oh, yeah.
It's that persistent, frustrating, and sometimes just maddening challenge of factuality. We're talking about the hallucination problem. And it remains maybe the most critical and definitely the most difficult hurdle in building AI you can actually rely on.
It really is the foundation of trust, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for a long time, the research into LLM factuality has been, well, a bit split.
Split how?
For years, we've kind of evaluated two scenarios completely separately. On one hand, you have models that have to ground their response, meaning they have to base their output only on a document or an image you give them.
Right, that's the grounding challenge. You give it the source, and it absolutely cannot stray from that source.
Precisely. And then the other side of the coin is general world knowledge. This is where you test a model's ability to just recall information, stuff that's stored deep inside its own parameters or, its ability to use a search tool to find it.
But the reality of how we use AI, especially in a business setting or for complex research, is that you never use these things in isolation.
Never.
I mean, if you're asking an LLM to analyze a financial report, it needs grounding to pull the right quarterly figures, but it also needs world knowledge to understand what GAAP accounting terms even mean. You need both to be accurate at the same time.
Which is why relying on these siloed benchmarks just gives us a totally incomplete picture of real-world reliability. So today, we're diving deep into the FactTS Leaderboard. It's a new, comprehensive suite that's designed to give us that holistic measure.
And that's our mission for you today. To unpack the 4 distinct pillars that make up this overall FactTS score, we're going to analyze what the current frontier models are good at, and maybe more importantly, where they still fall way short.
And that's a key point. I mean, what's so telling is that the top model on this entire suite only gets an average accuracy of about 68, 69%.
68.8%. That is a huge gap between where we want to be and where we are. It shows you why we need benchmarks like this so urgently.
So let's start with how that overall score is built. The FactTS score is that single big picture metric. It's calculated as the average accuracy across the 4 sub-leaderboards we're about to get into.
So you can look at that one number for a quick comparison.
Exactly. But to really understand what a model is doing, its strategy, its strengths, its weaknesses, you have to break it down and look at those 4 components one by one.
Okay, so let's do it. Pillar 1, FCTS, multimodal. This is where things get really complicated because you're asking the model to smash together visual information and its existing world knowledge.
It's not just describing what's in the pixels, it's recognizing what those pixels represent and then connecting that to a whole database of facts it already knows.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It's a key challenge. FactTS multimodal evaluates that ability to integrate visual grounding from an image with its parametric world knowledge to actually answer a question. It's the difference between, say, describing a photo of a vintage car and identifying its specific engine type, knowing its manufacturing date, and listing its original top speed.
And the data set for this isn't clean, right? It's based on messy, real-world stuff.
Totally. It's built from about 1,500 actual user queries. You see stuff like detailed visual description that's almost half the set, but also object recognition and even interpreting data from charts and diagrams.
So a really wide range.
Huge range. Nature, diagrams, transportation, you name it. But the thing that makes this benchmark so demanding is the rubric the automated judge uses. It's a dual verdict system.
Okay, what does that mean?
A response has to satisfy 2 criteria at the same time to be marked accurate. First is the coverage score. The response has to include every single one of the essential facts listed in the human-written ground truth rubric. You have to be thorough.
That sets a really high bar for completeness. But if they're so focused on that, what stops the model from just making stuff up to hit all the points?
That's where the second verdict comes in. It's called the no contradiction score. It's designed specifically to catch hallucinations.
I see.
The model can't include any claim that contradicts the rubric or common knowledge or the image itself. So a model could describe 99% of an image perfectly, but if it gets the color of an artist's signature wrong, it gets a contradiction verdict.
So it's not enough to be mostly right. You have to be completely right, and you can't introduce a single error.
Exactly. You only get marked as accurate if you satisfy both criteria. It is an incredibly strict bar because, in the real world, one tiny contradiction can destroy trust in the entire answer.
Yeah, that level of scrutiny feels essential for anything high stakes. Okay, so if multimodal is about fusing senses and memory, Let's go to pure internal recall with Pillar 2, FactCTS parametric.
Right. This is the ultimate closed book test.
No search, no cite, just what the model knows.
And the way they built this data set is fascinating. The goal wasn't just to make it hard, but to make it challenging in a really meaningful way. First, they made sure every answer is explicitly supported by Wikipedia, which we assume is the foundation of most pre-training. Second, the questions deliberately focus on the least frequent topics. They're avoiding all the common facts.
So they're not asking what's the capital of France, the stuff that's been repeated a million times in the training data.
Absolutely not. Those are table stakes. But the really critical step is the adversarial sampling. The researchers only kept questions if 5 strong open-weight models had already failed to answer them correctly.
Whoa, okay. So they're basically pre-filtering for failure. They're ensuring these are questions that even very powerful models will struggle with.
That's how you stress test the knowledge. They filtered out everything easy. And the answers themselves are so specific. Single, atomic, unambiguous facts. A name, a date, a number.
I was looking at the examples. They're almost absurd. Finding the performer who played harmonica on the Rockford Files theme song, or the exact tryphus gene boiling point in Celsius. I think I'd fail that test, even with Google open.
It just shows you the level of detail required for true factual mastery. It's about pulling one tiny detail from this massive, massive memory graph.
Okay, that covers internal memory. Let's shift gears and open the book to knowledge application, starting with Pillar 3, FCTS search.
This is a huge one. It evaluates that really common use case of generating answers by interacting with an external search API. In this case, they use the Brave Search API.
And I'm guessing these aren't simple Google it for me questions.
Not at all. The challenge is designed to mimic difficult, real-world searches. The questions require searching for tail entities, rare subjects, or complex multi-hop queries.
Can you give an example of that multi-hop logic? How do they force the model to think in steps?
Yeah, a great example is their wiki two-hop strategy. Instead of asking a direct question, they'll substitute an entity with a descriptor. So you have to do a search for, say, Yoko Ono's spouse to get the answer John Lennon, and then you take that answer and do a second search to get the actual fact you need.
So it's testing, reasoning, and planning, not just API access.
It's a brutal test of it. It forces the model to act like a skilled researcher. And they have all these specialized strategies for data collection, like Wiki Multidoc, where you have to synthesize info from several documents, or KG hops, which is these complex path queries.
And the metrics here are really cool. They go beyond just accuracy. They measure the hedging rate.
Which is when the model basically says, I don't know.
Right. And they also measure the average number of searches, which tells you how efficient the model is.
Which brings us pretty naturally to the last pillar, Pillar 4, FCTS Grounding V2. This one is absolutely essential for enterprise use cases where the risk of hallucination has to be near zero.
The focus here is on long-form answers that are totally grounded in a document you provide. Again, no outside knowledge.
And these documents are beasts, up to 32,000 tokens long. And they cover really demanding domains like medical, legal, and financial reports.
And the tasks are things like fact-finding or summarizing these really dense sections.
Right. And the evaluation here has this critical safeguard. It's a two-step process. First, an LLM judge checks if all the claims are verifiably grounded in the text. But the second crucial step is a check for eligibility.
Eligibility. That sounds like a weird term. If a response is grounded, it didn't lie, so why would it be ineligible? How can a model hack the score?
By being vague, but technically correct. The eligibility check is designed to stop models from giving these non-committal, useless summaries. An ineligible response is one that's grounded, but it completely fails to actually address what the user asked for.
So the model didn't lie, but it also didn't help me at all.
Precisely. That's the Kim distinction between being factually correct and being useful.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If you ask for the specific reasons for a company's revenue decrease, and the model replies, the company faced challenges that impacted its revenue, well, that statement might be grounded, but it's useless. It fails to give you the details you asked for. So that response is marked ineligible, disqualified, and counted as inaccurate.
That is a phenomenal layer of scrutiny. It forces the models to be accurate and useful.
Okay, now that we've covered the 4 corners, multimodal, parametric, search, and grounding, let's look at the actual results.
Yeah, the overall FACTS leaderboard confirms that this is still a really hard problem. The current standings show Gemini 3 Pro in the lead with a 68.8% FACS-CTS score.
And then it's Gemini 2.5 Pro at 62.1%, and GPT-5 is right behind at 61.8%.
And if you look closer at the multimodal results, you see this fascinating tension between the model families.
The difference in philosophy almost.
Exactly. The Gemini family seems to be more recall-oriented. They get higher coverage scores. Gemini 3 Pro is at 68.4%. They seem willing to go out on a limb to make sure they include all the essential facts. While the GPT models, especially GPT-5, are more precision-oriented. They get the highest no-contradiction scores at 64.7%.
It highlights that dilemma. If you try to include more facts, you're statistically more likely to introduce a small error. If you prioritize absolute precision, you might be more cautious and miss some details.
And this is where it gets really interesting. If we look at the closed book FCTS parametric test, we see the strategic difference play out perfectly with the hedging rate. Let's compare GPT-03 and GPT-5.
Okay, so if you look at raw accuracy, GPT-03 did pretty well, 57%. But its hedging rate was tiny. It only refused to answer about 1.9% of the time.
Which suggests it was trained to just take a guess, even with low confidence.
Right, and GPT-5 took a completely different approach. It hedged way more often, about 13.3% of the time. It was much more willing to say, I don't know.
And what did that strategic caution buy them? That hedging must have paid off.
It did. It resulted in a much higher attempted accuracy. For the questions GPT-5 did decide to answer, it was correct 64.3% of the time.
So it's learning self-awareness. It's trading a higher attempt rate for a much higher success rate on the attempts it makes.
And that's why it got a higher overall F1 score. It shows that knowing when to back off is a sign of superior model control.
That is a huge insight into training philosophy. It's not just what you know, it's knowing what you don't know. And finally, the search efficiency metrics give us a little window into how well these models use their tools.
That's right. Gemini 3 Pro, the top performer overall, actually conducts fewer searches on average, about 3.39.
Compared to what?
Well, other high-scoring models like GPT-5 use 4.28 searches, and Grok 4 Fast is up at 4.74.
And why does that matter? If you're getting the right answer, who cares how many searches it took?
Fewer searches suggest better efficiency. It means the model is probably asking better questions of the search engine, synthesizing results more intelligently, and just finding a more direct path to the verified answer. It's a measure of strategic execution.
So, to wrap up this deep dive, the FACS-CTS leaderboard gives you this really nuanced 4-part scorecard for LLMs: multimodal synthesis, parametric recall, search utilization, and grounding on long documents. It's a vital tool for tracking real progress.
For sure. And even though it's incredibly comprehensive, we have to acknowledge that factuality is a moving target. The authors themselves note there are still things not covered, like video understanding or, this is a big one, handling fast-changing information.
Yeah.
Facts that change by the hour.
Or new kinds of tool use beyond just a web search.
Exactly. The goalposts just keep moving.
The problem is definitely not solved, but our way of measuring it is getting so much sharper. But here's the final fundamental thought for you to chew on as we close out.
Uh-oh.
The entire FACS-CT suite relies on other advanced LLMs like Gemini 2.5 Flash and GPT-5 acting as judge models to grade the responses of their peers. This presents a core philosophical paradox. The ultimate assessment of AI factuality currently rests on the judgment of other advanced AI. How do we definitively know the judge is always right, and what kind of subtle systemic biases might that reliance introduce into the very definition of reliability we're all striving for? Think about that the next time you put your trust in a score.